much for giving us this opportunity for you to contribute to NFM and also to our goals of enlightening people about femicide and what it does. And we also love and appreciate what you do by creating a safe space for women and children. Please, a round of applause for what the organization is doing. Tell us about your early beginnings.
Okay, so I guess I would say that I started out as a poet. I started out by expressing myself through poetry, saying all the acts of inequalities and oppression of women around me. I started expressing myself through poetry. Um, but like I always say, when people ask me, why are you a feminist? How did you get into, you know, the advocacy space, working to end sexual and gender-based violence?
Yes.
I struggle a bit because I'm not able to pick specifically. Sometimes I wonder. I would say, should I give the story about how I was abused as a child um, by Barbara when I was 10 years old, the place where I used to barb my hair.
Wow.
And the place wasn't like a corner shop, so the man was able to just bark the door, sometimes close the door, and touch me inappropriately, especially on my
Yes.
chest, and I would just freeze and go home crying, and they would be wondering, why are you crying? You didn't want to cut your hair? And I couldn't even tell anybody for a long time.
Yes.
And by the time I was able to tell my mom, the man had actually closed that shop. I think there was another story about him touching another girl inappropriately, and they sent him out of that area. But then it was already too late for me. But thankfully, it was not too late,
Wow.
in that he wasn't able to have his way. And I also say, the fact that um I
Yes.
I'm a survivor of female genital mutilation, but you don't begin to know the effect of this till later in adulthood. So you don't even recognize the fact that you're a survivor of something until then you begin to identify with this, and then you begin to find your voice. And so I think that's about my humble beginnings. We started in 2021 with this podcast, and the DHS podcast was basically for the women I rescued, the women I saw going through different kind of abuse situation, and I begin to say, what, let's look for how you can be helped. You don't have to continue in this situation. And it was a lot. On my street only, I had rescued about 4 women, and this was a matter of 10 houses. So for you to know that this thing is so common, in
Yes.
about, in less than 20 houses, you've seen on just 4 women who were going through abuse. And, I just went, rescued them from that abuse situation, and then asked them, would you like to share your story to other women, anonymously or not, so that,
Yes.
about, we don't know what they're going through. Just in case they're going through this, they can also be rescued. I'm like, yeah, sure. We want other women that are going through the same to be able to know that this is where help is, this is how they
Yes.
escaped their abuse. And then we began like that, yeah, till we grew to be.
I'm so sorry that you had to go through these issues, and I'm happy that you came out stronger. Now I even see where the passion was forward from, because like you've had experiences like this and you understand what it means to go through. Exactly, now shaped you in saying, in fact, let's set up DOHS. Let's create a safe space for women and for children.
Okay, so like I said, the staggering amount of inequality that we witness over propelled us to properly setting up the organization, so that more women and girls can recognize the fact that this is a body, this is an organization, and we'll work towards this with goals,
Yes.
with workers, with everybody ready to work towards it. So it was really um, inspired by the level of success that we had at the with the podcast. So it's not just us doing this to get the story of these women. It's now us, being a holistic center um, for a whole lot of things: rescue from abuse, trauma healing, and documenting the history, trying to properly dive to be able to prefer solution to this. So
Yes.
we weren't just doing direct services anymore. We were trying to scale up impact to be able to change the systems that make these women and girls susceptible to abuse. So that was why we scaled to um, the foundation, DOHS Cares Foundation, DOHS Cares for Vulnerable Women and Children Foundation. And we still do the podcast and do a lot of programs to sensitize women and girls about abuse,
Yes.
communities in general, educational advocacy campaigns. And
Yes.
then we began to document femicide in 2023. We began to document femicide due to some of our cases are domestic violence or sexual abuse cases that
Yes.
eventually turned out to be femicide. We lost a woman in 2022, in early 2022, who had been going through, um, you know, marital rape and domestic violence. And so after we lost her, then, when we tried to get her justice, we discovered that more or less like no evidence. There was nothing to prove this. There was no legislation to back what we were trying to say up. So then we began to look into the reason
Yes.
why this persists and began to um, document femicide cases and visualize it and predict trends and patterns uh, in order to arrest this prevalence of
Mm.
violence against women and girls.
Wow. I think that's enough experiences to fuel your passion in starting up this foundation. But for more clarity, what's the full words of this DOHS?
It's document our history. So that's
Oh,
basically what we do.
okay.
Documenting of women, the history of abuse, this history of their escape, of their
Yes.
rescue, the history of how, they lived, how they survived this. We're just documenting history and using the history to predict threats and patterns and offer solutions.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, femicide, when people hear femicide, a lot of people, they are not even very clear on what femicide is all about or what it is. They just join everybody to say, oh, this is a femicide issue, this is this. But we would love you to break it down to a layman's understanding. Could you give us a background or probably like a preamble of what femicide is all about?
Okay, so femicide is the intentional killing of women and girls, usually by their intimate partners, um, because of their gender, simply because they are women. It's usually characterized by domestic violence and sexual abuse, by history of abuse over time. It's not just a one-time thing. It's usually the result of a cycle of abuse over time. And femicide, it's not just intimate partner violence. It's violence perpetrated by men who are what's it called, relatives or close acquaintances as well. And there are certain um, characteristics that we use to classify what femicide is. For example, when a woman or a girl is community of a woman or girl is dumped by the roadside, in order to implicate some, sexual derogatory remarks to
Yes.
implicate that they, you know, sexually liberated. When a woman or girl killed for, gender-related motives, basically,
Yes.
either because of power, power differentials issues, or when I say gender related motives, I mean that basically driven by misogyny.
Yes.
Misogyny is the bias or discrimination against women and girls, and usually most cases of femicide are prompted by misogyny. Because some of the cases that we have seen happens when, sometimes when these women are a bit liberated, either sexually or a bit financially, trying to be financially liberated. And a woman, for example, um, insists that, gender rules or stereotypes, when she tries to get out of that box, it becomes an issue in most homes. And that's where you see that cooking is a big issue. So many women are killed because of cooking. It's so shameful. In the last year, we had a woman who was burned to death because of roasted yam.
Roasted
Yeah,
yam.
roasted yam.
Ah,
Yes,
that's terrible.
because of roasted yam, she wanted to cook it. Her husband wanted her to roast it. So
I think
we
I've
had,
also heard something like that as well. I think I have.
yeah,
I think one was even bread because she
yeah,
bread.
women who were killed because of eba, because
Ah,
of gari, of rice, because of akara. Women who were killed because the way they wanted to cook sari. We had
mm,
one this year by the way she wanted to prepare sari when they wanted to break during Ramadan. She was
I've
flogged
heard
to
of
death
it.
by her husband in Bauchi. So so most of these reasons has to do with you know gender discrimination and
Yes.
forms of inequality. Yeah.
This is really clear. A lot of people would now understand what femicide is all about. And I love the fact that you came up with examples to show that this is what femicide is all about. Now, in relation to those examples, right, we've had a lot of occurrences that has happened. We even have the most latest one, gospel singer Osinachi, that her husband was sentenced by hanging. So many occurrences, so many incidents that has been happening. Recently I think this one of a lady at Barimpa that was killed. So many issues that when femicide has been coming up. But from your own point of view, we want you to tell us occurrences that has really shook you concerning femicide. We want you to share that experience with us.
Say that what I think I find shocking most is when femicide occurs in Nigeria and then there's no furor about it. And then femicide occurs outside the country,
Mm.
one of these, Western countries abroad. And people are, even Nigerians are shouting about it. And it will be so painful because this is happening in our backyard. Like, we have a pandemic here. We have a femicide problem here as well. You're not talking about it. For example, last year when Rebecca Shaffajay, the Olympia, the Olympian, yes, she ran during the Olympics and she was doused in fire by a Kenya boyfriend.
Mm.
And she's from Uganda, but I think she was living in Kenya and she was killed. She was burned to death by her boyfriend over some land issue or something.
So sad.
And even organizations in Nigeria were releasing statements about the horrific death. And in the previous week, Fatima, same thing happened to a lady in Kano. Fatima was burnt to death by her boyfriend as well. And it was so terrible because I don't even think it was her boyfriend to say, because um, he asked her out. So they started dating. I think they dated about 7 days.
7 days.
He asked him, and on the 7th day, he asked her to marry him, and and she said no, I'm not gonna marry you. Like, I'm not ready for marriage. And he felt like maybe how did you have the audacity to reject my advances?
Yes.
And it doused her, and he burnt her alive. He burnt her to death.
Oh my
And
God.
it's such an example of the way that patriarchy shapes
Yes.
our society, in which women are seen as lesser beings. Like, how dare you reject a marriage proposal? Do you know who I am? And the man is probably going to get some kind of sympathy for that marriage rejection. You would
Yes.
see people chatting about it and saying it's not easy. You go propose to person, they go turn you
And
down.
it's
No,
and
saying
it's so
heartbreak
crazy that
heartbreak can kill.
women would even indulge, and other women would even indulge
Yeah,
and support him.
yeah, it's so crazy. So and this is just because of the misogynistic structures that we
Yes.
have that are resolved. And if that's not done, women and girls can never live free of violence in
At
Nigeria.
all.
So many of these cases are very painful, especially the cases that we handled ourselves. Like I said, the case that we handled in 2022, we were just about to get her out. Like, it was a Sunday. The case was reported to us on a Sunday. So then we went to tell, we connected with the shelter on Monday. So, like, okay, bring paper, report in the position, and, bring an extract and bring her
Yes.
out. Bring her to the shelter first thing on Tuesday morning. And she died on Monday night. It was so painful because, especially for that woman, she tried to, but she didn't have any support system to help her immediately. So that was doubly painful. And also, of little girls who were raped to death. I don't think there's any femicide case that I've seen that is not like, oh God, I beg.
Mm.
It's just
That's
one crazy killing the other.
or the other.
And this June 2025, I've never seen a month like
No,
this.
no, this one is too much. No, I think sequel to the story that you even mentioned. I think was it day before yesterday that very dark man was talking about a lady has as well. She found out that she has been dating a man of over 7 years, and he is married with 4 kids, and he had actually been training her a while back in school and supporting her family. But because she found out that he's married and he has been lying to her for 7 years, she decided to leave the relationship. And what did he do? He planned up a meetup, made her very tipsy and drunk, and took her to a shallow place, called for a meeting. I know she felt comfortable, and he stabbed her severally, telling her, how can you break up with me and whatnot. It's a very recent case that just happened day before yesterday. And such stories that keeps coming up
It's,
keep
please have,
yes.
I've not seen it. Please send it to me
I would send it to you definitely.
when we
So
are done.
but the good thing is that she survived to tell the story, right? He stabbed her severally. I think it was passerbys that helped her when he pushed her in the bush. So now they have taken the case to court. He's coming to apologize that it was the devil, and so many issues that concerns it. So I'm just bringing it up that in relation to the story that you mentioned. So I think a lot of experiences and occurrences has really been bad, especially on women issue. But we need to know the genesis of this femicide. Like, what is fueling femicide in Nigeria? Why are they killing women unnecessarily?
That's a good question. I'm going to try to answer it because I'm not sure I have the answer to that, because I'm also looking for the answer to that. I wish I can have the answer to that. But in my opinion, like I said, we live in a very violent, a very patriarchal society, whereby the unequal treatment of women is based on outdated stereotypes and roles that are ascribed for women and men, and the unequal power relations between men and women is very established in structures here. And that is why it seems as if violence is interwoven into our society. And that is why when violence against women is committed, it feels as if the perpetrator is violence against women is normalized in Nigeria. It feels like as if it's the norm,
Yeah.
and it's so pervasive in many, you know, um, cultures here, in many in religious settings, in traditional settings. That's why you see that pastors, imams, they will be preaching that women should endure abusive relationship. They will tell you to pray, get on your knees, and try to do this. Why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? When women tell them about their experiences, there is the issue of the twin tools of patriarchy, which is tradition and um, religion, and also the lack of support system. Many women and girls, especially women who are in intimate partner relationships, women in intimate partner relationship going through violence, who have one or two children, if they do not have the right support system, will not leave that abusive environment
Yes.
um, for fear of leaving behind their children. But if there were adequate support system that these women could go through that can get their children for them, the issue of custody is a mess in this country. There's no support system. I mean, for Lagos State, that is even like averagely in the issues of gender-based violence, very, very on top with such issues. Still, we have a lot of problem with custody issue. It's giving us a lot of headache at DOHS Case Foundation. Um, so we can relate. In fact, currently we have one right now this week that wanted to leave. In fact, she has gotten an Airbnb. Like, for this money is not even issue. She's gotten an Airbnb that she wanted to take her children, that she wanted to go with her children, because the husband beat her up, left the door open, and overnight, and said she must not, open close the door. He had already beaten her up with once before and flung her at a fan. And this night as well, he beat her up and told her that she leaves the door to the room open when she tried to lock it. And so she was like, she told us that her sister called us and told us that she had gotten an Airbnb, but it seems that the husband found a packed bag inside her, that she was about to leave, and immediately rushed to the school and took the children away.
Oh my God.
So because he knows that without the children she won't leave. So at the end
Yeah.
of the day, she has to come back home that night, and she's still there because she's telling us that she's not going to leave without her children. And so this custody issue is, and because these men know, they just
Yes.
probably, you know,
I know.
probably use it to punish that they know
For
that
no
you won't go anywhere
reason.
without your children,
For
so
no
they will
reason.
hold the
They
children at
punish
bay.
women.
And I would say, apart from lack of support system, I would say also um, lack of appropriate legislation to address this crime.
Yeah.
There's no specific legislation on femicide in Nigeria. I mean, we've had one or two good sentencing, but then it still doesn't suffice to address this crime. We because when you give a murder sentence, but you don't address the gender-related killing motive behind that killing, such is probably going to occur again, and you don't
Yeah.
address it in your judgment. So we want femicide. We welcome the death sentences that have been given out to perpetrators of femicide in the past 2 months. We have had sentencing for Osinachi
Yes.
and for
Ololade Ajayi.
Bamishe, and also, yes,
Yes.
Salome Adaidu
Yes.
are very welcome. We hope that the government, the state governors, would actually, speedily bring these death sentences to pass, not that they will just be there. So, yeah, I would say that lack of specific legislation, also sometimes law enforcement agencies who are not actually enforcing the law. Sometimes the police are actually, you know, in this when you report a case of domestic violence and they try to settle it as a family issue.
Yes.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And why would the police try to be settling a domestic violence issue when you know that it's a prosecutable crime?
Yes. That can lead to
So
murder.
exactly. So all of this and many more are the reasons why femicide persists.
We want to raise a social consciousness in people's mind concerning these systematic issues. Like we want people to be aware that this is not normal. Women should not make it look normal, right? This is something that is bad. So how do we raise such consciousness in people, especially people who are ignorant and lackadaisical about this particular issue?
So I guess we'll continue to raise awareness.
Mm.
We'll continue to sensitize people about what femicide is, about the red flags of femicide, because so many women don't even know they're in relationships and they're probably walking dead,
Mm.
And so for us at DOHS, what we do is that we go to communities. We have localized awareness on femicide. We have an awareness I start know the pie woman, and because we to do sensitization in these communities, telling women about the red flags of femicide, that when domestic violence has been occurring over time, you're likely to be a victim of femicide in the nearest future. When there's threat to kill, or there's a presence of a weapon when
Mm.
domestic violence happens, that woman is likely to be a victim of femicide. Or when
Yeah.
domestic violence happens, the man then burn things, burn your clothes. Maybe you have a pet, he burns your pets, and it just, does this irrational thing, has this irrational attachment to burning things.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a red flag. He might do it to you one day, and we tell them excessive display of jealousy and trying to isolate you is a red flag for femicide. So we go to communities to sensitize women about these different red flags, just to let them know. And we're also advocating for legislation. We have drafted a bill on femicide and submitted it to the National Assembly to say, you know what, why don't you think about this? Why don't you take this up? You cannot continue to look at, the lives of women being wasted. Why don't you um, also think about the mental impacts of this on family and
Yeah.
and also the economic impact of this, even on the nation, how, victims' family become traumatized that they cannot even contribute economically to the country, which is costing us in GDP. So, um, for us, we just continue to talk about it, and we appreciate such platforms that the Naija feminist media is putting up also, to sensitize people about this, like this um podcast and all the things that you are doing at Naija feminist media to sensitize women and girls about femicide. And we're also using data to fight
Mm.
this crime, data activism. We are documenting this. femicide cases, just so you know that, you know what, we're not just shouting about this. Look at the numbers. How much is the life of a woman when in 2020 recorded over 133 deaths, over 133 victims of femicide in 2024. And this year we are close to 80. We have recorded over 75 cases of femicide.
And 2025 is not yet over.
But just in the first half of the year, for crying out loud. So what are you going to do about it? So we will not be tired. We just ensure that we continue to do all we can to combat femicide in Nigeria.
Okay. This is a power-packed conversation, honestly, because you have, been able to tell them how they can be able to raise that social consciousness themselves.
Thank you so much for coming.